Welcome to Conscious Conversations. My name's Luke McLean. I've created this little podcast because I'm a mindfulness-based life coach. And what that really means is I use mindfulness as the foundation to coach people. I just think that ability to be in the present moment without the judgment and open awareness is our optimal performance state. Whether it's sport, whether it's leadership, it doesn't matter what you're doing. When you bring it with openness, the mind and body are connected, you are going to perform at your best. And when you can train the attention to be in those spaces more often, when you can get yourself into a really flow state through that, then you're going to show up and you're really going to perform well. So I work with clients to get great outcomes as that is the foundation. I also teach meditation because I also think that that's an awesome tool to become more mindful. So that's me. That's my coaching business. It's called Eco Life Coaching. And from that, I've created this range of podcasts where I catch up with people who are living really conscious and authentic lives to them, to what they see as being truly deeply and meaningful to them. And I also unpick the tools that they're using to live authentically and on their true path. And these conversations are, with a range of different people, from leaders to yoga instructors to authors, all types of people, because everyone's path's different. That's the beauty of these conversations, is there's no right path or wrong path, but there's your authentic path, and that's yours. And so many of us can get drifted off to another path that they think's theirs and true to them, but they've really discovered that it's not, and they need to find their way back. So this is some great conversation. So I hope you like the podcast. I hope you like the interviews. If you want to check out more of what I do, just ecolifecoaching.net, and I've got a blog up. My podcasts are up there, and there's a little bit of info on what I do. So I hope you like it, and we'll talk to you soon.
You've been waiting around long enough. The moment is here, and you better stand up. It's time. You better stand up.
Welcome to this week's episode of Conscious Conversations. My name's Luke McLean. Chances are, if you have got kids and you live in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and even perhaps the US, you've heard of and definitely shopped at Cotton On Kids. Cotton On Kids is the arm of kids' clothing for the Cotton On Group, and it's been a hugely successful business over the past 6 to 7 years. And today I get the awesome chance to interview their general manager, Darren Fox. Foxy has been a good friend of mine personally for the past nearly 9 years, and I've had the real privilege of watching Foxy grow as a leader from an external lens. I've never actually worked with him, but being close with him, I've seen him come from middle management at the Cotton On Group to a GM role, and he's done it the hard way. He's definitely earned his stripes, and just through really hard work and the ability to grow himself and grow his people, he's been given a great opportunity to become the general manager of one of their most iconic brands in Cotton On Kids. So it's a really great conversation, this one. This is an awesome chat. Foxy's he's a hard worker. He definitely lays it down. Whether it's physically, I've done Ironmans with him. I've done some big races, some multi-day bike rides, and he pushes hard, physically, and that shows up with how he leads. He's got great resilience. He's got a great ability to get into the depths and into the detail of hard work and want to work through the other side. And I think that's been a real feature of his leadership. It shows in this conversation that he keeps things really simple. He focuses really clearly on the process and the performance within the process that delivers the outcome. But he understands it's the process that delivers the outcome, not just the outcome. And you can have as many great things in a strategy document or in a vision, but unless you're willing to work hard to bring them to life, they mean absolutely nothing. And he's living proof of that. So I really hope you like this conversation. This is Darren Fox from Cotton On Kids. Good to have you on the podcast, mate. I wanted to start, how did you get into retail? How did you cut your teeth into the retail environment, and where'd you start?
Well, really, like a lot of people in retail, it was an accidental thing, and it wasn't something I set out to do. I'd studied and worked in hospitality, and thought, oh, those hours don't really suit me. So I went into an interim thing, and one thing led to another. But I quickly gravitated towards it was something I really enjoyed, and I liked the people interaction. So 30 years later, here I am, still with it.
You're in it. So where'd you start? What company was that with? And what were you doing? Were you on the shop floor when you started?
Yeah, definitely on the shop floor. Over about a 10-year period, a few instances where I went in and out, but definitely in sales. I had an interest in technology and so on, and I sort of married the two things together, and photography, and ended up working in sales, and went from that, progressed to supervisory and management positions, and ended up running larger stores. I was working eventually in the airport and duty-free industry, which at the time in the 90s was a pretty big deal, and running some reasonably large operations, and liked the people side of it, but also liked the large groups. There were stores where you'd have 100 or 200 people on the team, so they were kind of mega stores when you were working in an airport. So it was like a little regional estate in itself. So it was a fun place to work.
And starting out at retail in that environment, like, what was the biggest learnings you got, like early on when you're starting to, and probably still today, that you're getting into that retail environment? Like, what are the key things that you first learned that you still hold today?
That it's hard work and requires energy, and it's not always it's not a walk in the park every day of the week. And I think everyone involved with us and the group knows that there's ups and downs, but you need to be resilient and drive through that stuff, and things do turn around. I've not ever worked for a company where we haven't had peaks and troughs. No day or week is always like that. So I think resilience is that, and I think along with resilience, you've got to have that energy. So there's days when you have to show up, and you have to put it on. It's almost like a bit of a game face, because the customer doesn't care about your issues and whether this has shown up or that delivery's not working and so on. So that's probably the main thing that stood out. I think I still think that every day now a long way down the track, that I see people, and I know for myself, and I see other people successful in the business, and the ones who are really resilient and can maintain their buoyancy and not let, yes, there's issues, but accept that's life and that's what's going to happen. But you keep putting one foot after the other. It's like maybe a metaphor for life too, that I think that's key to a lot of successes.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And I think if you, in that 30 years, have you seen anyone do it, or have you got any tools that you can bring that energy, even when you're maybe not intrinsically feeling it, but you can still bring it and show it up and perform in the day?
Oh, look, I've worked with people where it comes naturally, and that, those people are always up. And I've worked with people who have to work at it, and I'm probably someone who is somewhere in the middle. So it's the people. If it comes naturally to you, that's obviously an easier thing. But that doesn't necessarily just make you more successful at that as well. So, I think it's an onus on management and leadership in the business to actually recognise that that's an investment. That it's not a nice to have to maintain. And I guess it comes down to engagement, and there's personal engagement, but then there's group engagement as well. So that's. I've worked luckily in the last 5 years or so with a group of people who we really thought that was a valuable thing to invest time in, and it's not just a luxury that you do for a business. So I would encourage everybody to sort of take that approach and think about there's different types of engagement as well. It can be systemic, which is your big organised programs and so on that a group like us would organise. But then there's just the right down to the face-to-face, one-on-one, random, organic stuff that just happens between people. If it doesn't come naturally it doesn't to everybody. Train yourself and make it a habit. And I think it probably didn't come naturally to me. So I've sort of almost put an effort into making a habit of it, and treating engagement, whether it's my own and now with a wider team, make it a serious part of your day, and it's just a job, or part of your job. But it's a great job. It's a fun part of it.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's huge. When you're back sort of working in those bigger environments and you're cutting your teeth in retail, how did you stand out and get up the run? Get up that ladder, and as opposed to someone that didn't. What were some of the things that you were doing that others weren't that got you noticed and got you moving in the right direction for those people that maybe are at a store level or at a regional level that are looking to transition up? Like what's some of the things that you were doing?
I think it came down to sort of a personal accountability. I don't know, it's just happened and it wasn't a conscious decision, but I think, and you don't think about it yourself at the time, but obviously, you're rather junior at the time and senior people in the business may see that, but, again, you have your ups and downs and your performance and results go up and down, but the ability to keep pushing towards and just keep, like I said, being tenacious, resilient, pushing forward. I think that's one of my strongest things, that I'll keep showing up, in whether it's at work, in personal life or whatever, and I stick to something, and if I say I'm going to do it, I'll do it. And so I guess it's personal accountability, throw in a bit of luck and a bit of skill and that type of stuff. But I think it's probably that. It's hard work, and it's funny when you're in it. It seems like it's a day at a time, and it's a long way to get somewhere. But I never really thought about that. I thought more about results and moving towards the result. I guess from day one I felt like responsible for that result, whether it was my counter at a photo stand, or whether it was the film sales, or whether it was progressing through the business, making sure that rostering was done properly or whatever, and thinking more about the end result than me. I guess I never really thought about me and ambition or anything like that. I never really set out to do anything particular. It just sort of happened along the way, and I think it does in most cases, but you've got to keep pushing forward and also I think along with that is have confidence, but also be confident enough to change the way you do things and be honest about your shortcomings and your failures and that type of stuff. And if you're out there in the world today and you think and there's nothing to learn, then you've peaked and you're not getting any better. So
yeah, I think there's something in that agile commitment. There's commitment, but you've got to have the agility to be able to deliver on that, which is absolute. Mate, I know personally and also know professionally, you sit in the process of performance, and you believe heavily that that's going to deliver the outcome. How important is that now for your teams to really be clear about what the process is to perform, as opposed to worrying always about the comp or the outcome of what that will be? Yeah,
well, that's one thing I do focus on with teams. I go, look, we know that the process that, use COG as an example, we know what we do and our way of doing things works. There's highs and lows, and there's market conditions, and there's good and bad executions of it and bits in between all along the time, and it's never perfectly executed. But we know when we get it right, it does work well, and it's a good formula for a retail business. So I encourage the team, when things are going right, it's not the process, it's the execution of the process, or it's an external factor, and you work on those. Don't change the process, because the last 20, approaching 30 years of it says that you don't need to change it. So I encourage people not to expend their energies in that way. Fair, and that's not to concede that it can't get better, but the fundamentals of what we do I believe, should stay the same. So I strongly, I see part of my role as a leader in the business is to be an advocate for that and to make sure you're the custodian of it and try and pass it on, and then show people the advantage of them passing that on as well, because what we don't want is people to come into the business and spend 80% of their time reinventing something that works. You want them to, I guess, immerse themselves in the structure and the process and the way we do things, and then use their talents well within it, and then know it, and then make it better. Don't make it different. So that's something I've advocated for a long time, and people say, "Oh, you're a process nerd," or you this and that. I go, it's not actually that. It's just that it's a more productive use of people's time. I think we have a good way of doing things. We